Good evening, everyone. This is Thursday, October 2nd of 2025, and this is our most exciting episode that we've done in quite a while for Pluto, and this is Astrology Unplugged, the astrological podcast that was created by our founder and beloved friend, Rick DiClemente. And we are so happy to have everyone here pursuing this wonderful sharing that was really something that had him really bring out such a beautiful experience of learning and sharing with one another. So, on that note, um, we're just going to have some open discussion. I am Rick, and Claudia is going to pretty much be having a little time off at the moment, and Linda will be getting some help with me as well. We can have people chime in with a question at any time. If you'd like to raise a hand or point a finger, you know, feel free. We will slow down because we want everybody to experience a really great time with this. So, we're talking about Pluto, and there's a lot that we could discuss. And amongst those things, we were thinking about looking at Pluto in Capricorn because we wanted to go ahead and take everybody through some steps. How do we look at the relevance of a planet? And I look at the discovery chart as well as the mythology and try and back it up with things that were happening at the time of discovery, which for Pluto was February 18th of 1930 in, I want to say, yeah, Flagstaff, Arizona, here in the US. And there was a lot going on in our world at that time. And it was more than just the Dust Bowl. And we're going to go ahead and dive in and see other elements besides history, because we're also going to look at some symbolic things and a lot of other various areas. Linda, did you have any overview that might give people a thought as to things you wanted to share that we could work on together, fleshing out?
Certainly, always. Um, Rick and I talked a little bit about this session, and I wanted to just throw in here that when we talk about Pluto, we're talking about something that was discovered, the third thing that was discovered in the outer realms. So we start out with humanity being able to see everything in the sky, out to Saturn. And of course, they were aware of the Pleiades and so many other things. Well, I'm not saying that the ancients were stupid at all, they knew a lot. But it took a kind of telescope before we could see Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. These three big, these three entities out there, planets, they represent the collective. So we moved first from the emphasis on self and everything, thinking that everything was going around the sun and everything is going around me. Meanwhile, we had to factor in the Jupiter and Saturn archetypal energy, which was living in community, having belief systems that kept us united in some way. Once we had Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, we're dealing with a collective unconscious. So, what I want to ask y'all to keep in mind is that we've been on a journey of becoming more conscious since Uranus was discovered in 1770s, right? Forget the exact year.
Yeah, or 1781, maybe,
1781. Okay.
roughly.
So ever since then, we've been on this path of individual awakening and unconscious, coming out, and also collective. It's just individual and collective. Now I think we're even in a bigger collective time because we have dwarf planet, um, Eris, Sedna, we have asteroids, we have all this stuff going on. We're being asked by the universe to get bigger and bigger and more expansive in our comprehension of what it's all about. So that's what I would say right now. And then later, I'd like to mention that other thing about discernment, initiation.
Sure.
I think this is good just to kick it off. Of
Yes. And if anybody's curious, I might slip and not say collective. I may mention global,
yeah,
because that's another way I conceptualize this, because we have individual development and consciousness as well as a shared understanding as humanity. And those of us that live on this planet are having new energies of the planetary discoveries upon their discovery coming into our consciousness. So that's where I'm looking at this. And only right now is it dawning on me, since you shared that, that I look at, oh, it's interesting. Saturn might have a little bit more of um, a stretched out orbit, but Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are what gives us the more elliptical. And I wonder if that has something to do with the pull of our Milky Way galaxy going around the super galaxy that gives us this pull towards supergalactic center, beyond galactic center. So there may be some ramifications of how we are coming into connection, preparing ourselves for something larger than ourselves.
yeah. Very good. I like that. And we want to also emphasize that we want, as this class or meeting goes along, to think about where we are individually. And of course, the Uranus is in Gemini, but we're going to focus on Pluto, its movement from Capricorn into Aquarius. How is that impacting you? You know, it's not just how is it impacting the collective, but how is it impacting you as one person or one soul, in a collection of many. We don't know how many millions of years it'll take everybody to get on board with expansion of consciousness.
Right.
But we want to know where we are for sure.
So I just want to go ahead and share this one little thing that I have not been able to get onto my computer because it is just not showing up even when I use the exact same search. And this is a little bit of a comparison of Pluto in astrology versus the element plutonium, and how they share thematic similarities. They share those related to power, transformation, destruction, and what is hidden or resides in the underworld. So themes roll from power and intensity, destruction and rebirth, the hidden and subterranean, and it goes on to really separate. If we're curious, I can even flesh out, if anybody's curious, the different parts of what would be similar to plutonium, as is the planetary astrological influence. But they they are quite intriguing to look at that way. The symbolic connection's not an accident. The element was named after the then planet, because uranium and neptunium, the elements preceding plutonium on the periodic table, were named after Uranus and Neptune. So it definitely has some crossover, intriguing spaces. And Linda, I think we touched on this. I know that I've talked to other astrologers and people. It is amazing how you can go ahead and look at the naming of planets done by astronomers who have no concept of astrology and very minimal awareness compared to what some of us have of mythology. And they go ahead and choose these things, and we find relevance. We put them in the chart, and they make sense to us.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how does wow introduce a really good topic for the next set of thought, Linda?
I don't know. I don't know. Does anybody want to say anything? I mean, Brit, evolutionary astrology has a lot to do with Pluto, so feel free to share or ask any question or give your insight about Pluto that rules chaos and trauma and hence evolution and transformation and evolution. And if you don't want
I'm happy to just talk about
to,
the
okay.
what you were saying, Linda, about just how we've been on the path from when we discovered Pluto and it's the collective unconscious, and it really feels it. I know I can only speak from my what I'm living, but there's
Hmm.
this sense of that, yes, that there is more. I can see it in what I'm seeing across the world, and that mix of that sense for me that there's okay, we feel like we're in a complete chaos at the moment, and and it um, and yet there's also this sense of awareness, a deep awareness with a lot more people that um, that's sort of on a completely different level. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it's like it's happening. It's all this awfulness is happening, and yet there's all this beautiful connection happening, heart to heart, and it feels like there's this bubbling up of something really special, even though yes, it's absolutely nutso in the world,
Oh,
and
I agree.
and biggest lesson for me is to attempt not to be taking it all in every day. And
Hmm.
even I'm finding, and even though it feels strange doing it, anything that seems to be coming out of someone over there in America, or many people, I just laugh because it's absolutely absurd. So so my heart goes out to people that are going like you, how, you know, I pray you are able to stay, heart-centered and and not get too affected by what's happening over there. So I suppose that's to me must be all Pluto, not all Pluto, but very much connected into Pluto. Still being a novice astrology student. What do you think?
True. And we didn't
Mm.
know, like in the 60s and 70s, we didn't have the awareness of the connection. Even astrology didn't talk about, oh, look, we've got Uranus and Pluto conjunct opposing Saturn in 1965. That awareness really came later when it
Sure.
in retrospect. It's like it's always easier to see things in the rearview mirror. So, we're going to have something down the line, 10 years down the line, astrologer will go on like, oh, look what was going on. But
Yeah.
this time
Right.
around, we do have more awareness, I think, of what's going on in the moment because there's more awareness, there's a bigger understanding
Yeah.
of the cycles that are happening.
We're getting glimpses that are opening our eyes, like what happened with me last summer. Rick had his podcast rolling. I don't remember which episode it was. And we got to see Renate's chart, a lovely 84-year-old woman at the time. And I looked and saw transiting Pluto that takes
Yes.
274 years to get around the zodiac had reached opposition to her natal Pluto.
Right.
It was
Wow.
not just a Uranian opposition. She coincidentally had a Pluto opposition, which made me think, oh, wow. All the signs of short ascension coalesced to let me see that in all this time, we have been going through so much Plutonian stuff because everywhere we're experiencing it personally, locally. Every city has a time where they began, so they have a character. every state, every nation. Certainly, these regions interact with one another, and we do that on the world stage with other nations. And we're all going through all these spaces where each of us is experiencing transformation. And this is what pushed me to say at that point, what has been the reason for transformation? We first had to go through trauma. Linda, you had your
Oh,
hand up. Take it from
yeah.
here.
Thank you. I just wanted to put a little footnote in there for you that everybody has Uranus return in their chart around age 84.
Right.
It wasn't until a few years ago when I noticed, when I started looking at Pluto moving into Aquarius, I went, oh my God, Pluto's going to oppose my Pluto. So it happens to everybody.
Well, if
So
you're,
in your 80s, you
it
have,
depends.
no, everybody's going to have Uranus opposition. Pluto is
Yes.
going to oppose your Pluto, and Saturn is going to make its third Saturn return. So no wonder a lot of people leave in their 80s, because how do you live through all that? And yet some people do, some of us do. You know,
But
I
I
think
would,
I will.
the way I say sometimes is because Uranus will be there at 84.
Yeah.
But Pluto will not necessarily be in opposition for everyone, because if they were born maybe
Oh, not at
in,
84. No.
right, it was only because that sweet spot
Yeah,
where
I
we
get it.
see
Okay.
that the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st has come on like gangbusters and just exploded with activity, thoughts everywhere. You can't even keep up with the news.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot going down.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I will say that I have oodles of notes and I could go anywhere. But does anybody happen to have a question before we proceed? Because I think I want to start with just throwing out some Pluto themes.
Oh, that sounds good.
These are just a few. Alchemy, that is the personal transformation. Atomic theory and science of atomic power, organized crime, the occult.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the occult, sexuality, spirituality, depth psychology, death studies, possibly genealogy, because it contains the ancestors, ghosts, and I say that because I have had colleagues out of Ohio that as realtors, mediums, and astrologers, they have developed doing charts for houses based on the time of signing paperwork for rental or ownership, and they find information about where things are located in the house as far as hauntings.
Oh, that's so interesting
It
that it's going in that direction. Wow. Okay.
can, yeah.
Yeah.
Magic, mysticism, I would say at least where we have the intersection of shamanism, parapsychology, spirits, spiritual transformation, thanatology, which if I was to do a people study here, I might look into Elizabeth Kubler-Ross,
Mm.
transformation. What else would we throw into the list? It makes me wonder. Um, oh, I know one that I forgot that I didn't write down. Unions,
Unions. Ah, that's
because of
interesting.
the response of union organizers to maltreatment and being overlooked, the marginalization of workers, bringing them together to
Mm.
then have a collective voice. Along that
Yes.
line, social justice advocacy very well may have this element that they are influenced by Plutonian drives. Uh, there's so much to be looked at there because if we keep in mind that death is what levels the playing field with everyone.
Yes.
We will all
Yes.
die.
Yes.
So we are all part of that same mass of experiential life.
Mm.
So yeah, just as death, so is work. Work is a part of our everyday experience, and having dignity and experiencing some sort of uh, solidarity. Ooh, makes me wonder about Lech Walesa. You know,
Yeah.
that would be an
Gosh, that
interesting
was
figure.
huge.
Yeah. Um, for anybody who might be younger watching this podcast, Lech Walesa was a European Polish resident who was involved in social justice to help the labor unions in Poland in the 80s, if I'm
Mm.
remembering correctly. Does that sound
I
right,
think
Linda
that's
and
right.
Jane?
I think so. I think it was probably the 80s.
Right. It had to be because I was learning about it uh, in the early 80s,
Okay.
even if it started in the 70s.
But it was a big deal, I remember at the time, because it just seemed to be, across the world. It wasn't just like we heard about it in Australia and knew about what was happening, and it's a big deal at the time.
Sure. I think too you can't escape with the um, interpretation of the myth. So looking at the Demeter Ceres, Persephone, Proserpina, Pluto Hades connection, there is this young girl fascinated by the older bad boy in that magnetic relationship. There are those that speak of it as a violation, but there are also those that look at it as an embracing because Pluto is one of the only gods who was ever faithful to Persephone.
Mm.
No one else can say that. That that's pretty
Mm.
monumental in that entire
Yeah.
pantheon. That's hard to get over, and think of it as all one-sided. There's something about it. There is this fascination and allure, and it's a common theme and thread that goes through history with the older male, younger female, the May-December romance. So,
That
Wow.
is such an interesting interpretation of that myth because at least from 1970 on, we've seen it as, the old dude,
mhm.
grabbing the girl, pulling her into the underworld. There, the whole psychology of that,
Mm.
of the patriarchal rape, so to speak.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But look at Anna Nicole Smith.
Yes, of course.
That doesn't
No, I think it's
necessarily
healthy.
look,
I think it's healthy what you're saying, you know.
yeah, it seems like there's a current
Right.
cultural awareness from that where she certainly took back the power and held her own.
Hmm.
That would definitely be a likely case, you know, and that has to be there in several places. Anybody else think of any themes that I may have missed that you might like to add to the mix?
I'd like to know how people are experiencing or um, interpreting the move of Pluto from Capricorn into Aquarius. What's the difference? Does anybody experience that, or how are they experiencing the Pluto energy themselves?
Maybe we might want to talk a little bit about the difference between Pluto and Capricorn and Pluto and Aquarius. Um, Capricorn very earthy, structured, and having alignment with the status quo and structures as they are, and trying to move within that system, trying to build it more strongly, uh, build back better, perhaps, and how to secure the insecurities. Whereas Aquarius is recognizing with its air and intellect, there are some things Capricorn was missing. Where has humanity been left out? Who has not had a seat at the table when all these structures, organizations, corporations, governments, all connected to Capricorn, were being revitalized? Who is being left out?
Yeah.
That's certainly something that we are looking at, and we can see that as a possible subtle difference. Um, Not to say that it wasn't irritating people before Pluto went into Aquarius, and people have been talking about the age of Aquarius, and I'm a big one for advocating this understanding that, you know, we hear think back to the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and I was saying this today, and it's a beautiful metaphor, I think, that it can still be the darkest before the dawn, and you
Right.
hear the birds begin to sing as they are going through their rhythmic bio clock to awaken the trees to signal by vibration that they start doing things chemically within the tree to awaken and get ready to capture the sun. There are things that it's a symbiotic process, and it's like a wake up call that the birds are singing. And we're hearing the wake up call as we see humanity looking for a new intellectual breathing space of equality. That sounds Aquarian, doesn't it?
Yes, very much. Yes, totally.
So, where have we decided we want to breathe differently? Mm,
I like the fact you mentioned um, that there was more like it was to do with structure. I mean, there was so many things, but I feel like with Capricorn, whereas I feel like structures are being blown apart. I mean, we've still got our beautiful Saturn. I really love Saturn. So there's going to be that base, I suppose, of structure, but there's our human structures. It feels like we'll be seeing a lot of things shattering because you see it before your eyes at the moment, really. What we're
sure,
used to, what we're used to in many layers and levels of our lives, especially in government and across the world in government. Um, it's And I was thinking too about how important we the people is, even though that's a very American thing to say, isn't it? Really, we the people, but it
It's a
it
human concept too, isn't
it's
it?
a huge, yeah, but also there's that sense that, yeah, that the people are going, hang on a second. We're here. We're not just going to be blind. We're going to start waking up. So I wonder if that's it, Linda, in the Aquarian
Yeah,
influence in there as
totally.
well.
Yeah, yeah. The Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn, if you follow Pluto, Pluto is death. It's like something had to die in the systems that were in place, and it's still in that process. So a lot of the systems have been kicked, and they're not really even the systems that need to go. The big system that needs to go is the Capricorn oligarchy, the Capricorn kind of like
Yes.
uh, there's a certain elite that should be in charge. That still has to go. That hasn't been kicked out yet. So this other
Yes.
stuff is all just like the sideshow. If we kick this stuff out, if we persecute immigrants, if we do this and do these horrible things, that's like making change. But it's making change for the elite. It has nothing to do with what you're talking
Right,
about, the humanity. So that part is still to come, and that's the
right.
hard part. But it's going to come. I think it
Well,
is.
I think it's interesting that there are sources that cite that in the major arcana of the tarot, there is an historical reference to the inspiration of the tower that is struck is the church.
Oh yeah, for
It
sure.
is the
Oh,
shibboleth of
couldn't
an
agree more.
ivory tower.
Couldn't agree more.
It is at the time, I would say that you barely had the start of Reformation in the church when elements of the tarot were being explored. And because, that takes a while to get that shift made with Martin Luther and so on,
Yeah.
and Tyndale. But if you think about it, lightning comes up from the earth, not just down from the heavens. So there's this Plutonian collaboration with the Uranian lightning strike. It's almost like Uranus is pulling the lightning out of the earth
Right.
somehow. Is it something geomagnetic? That would be a curious thing to find out how that works with modern day understanding of lightning.
Yeah.
But the idea was there were some type of ivory tower in your mind when you encounter the tarot's card for the tower, that something you have believed for a long time is been shattered because just reality is in front of you. And it seems like it has that Uranian quality of the instant that it happens when Aquarius is our Uranian sign. That's where we see something from the heavens coming in a moment, just shattering the concept of what we thought it would be. The church still remains, but even though the church remains, we have elements within that are trying to revitalize, whether it's stepping away and building anew or working from within. So there's a lot to consider about how this looks.
So how is it affecting the people in this room? Jane, you're far away. You're in Australia, so you're like a witness right now, right? You're witnessing.
It feels like that. Yeah, you're right. Although we're so connected into what's happening in the US over here. And so it's sort of, I know I'm not living there, but it affects us incredibly. And we're our leaders, our Prime Minister and the UK Prime Minister are all connected in. But again, all that seems to be now shattering if that's the right word, even though there'll always be, I'd say, and the big connection between America and Australia. But yeah, it is that we've got some distance. You're right, Linda, we've got distance.
Are you
I
feeling it yourself in anything that you're doing in your life?
I think it's affected me. Like I'm more likely now to look at late night American shows on YouTube so I can have a laugh about it because they're so good. Um, but it does affect because it's sort of just always there how volatile right across the world. But just because if you think about what's happening everywhere, Gaza,
I know.
Israel,
Right.
Ukraine, America, and even hearing that, troops are going to be sent in to parts of America, and you just go, I can't even believe I'm hearing this.
Right.
This is so yes, I'd like to understand how you are dealing with it yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
We
I have a
talk about
thought that
how, yeah,
I'll
yourself.
share real quickly. Um, as a part of the planet, I was very uh, um beautifully surprised at the outpouring of love that occurred in Britain with the visit that was had, where people were flying from around Europe to get to Britain to be a part of this welcoming parade, welcoming, that we can certainly say was quite a surprise welcome for some. And I'm trying to be tasteful and not in the least bit inappropriate. Uh, there were expats. There were there was solidarity from people who were not American. There were U.S. citizens. There were residents of Great Britain who have really done what they could to see themselves as a type of political cousin to us with our roots, because you can talk about the settlers from the US or in the US coming from quote unquote all over, but it was Great Britain that we had the revolution fought against.
Right.
Make no mistake, it was the British monarchy that we were
Right.
stepping from. No
Excellent.
matter how much of a melting pot that may have been here. Yes, there may have been citizens that were coming from Germany.
Later.
I had one German ancestor that came over in the 1600s,
Okay. Okay. Cool.
but I don't question the fact that it's probably the likelihood that they came through Britain. They may have gone across
Yes.
from Germany,
Right.
because quite honestly, I don't see anything about this story. It was a German duke. You left a dukedom, there was probably something problematic there, you know? So I think there's a lot of change that never gets explained when you have those kind of stories.
Well, I think it's interesting you said that. And I'm really curious now to think about that there were other people from Europe coming here in the 1600s. Pluto was in Capricorn um, in the 1700s. So in the 1600s, we'd have to look at of where it was.
And what time, what expanse of the 1600s,
Well, yeah, I mean, it
you know?
started, yeah. So it's just interesting that there was like upheaval everywhere, from the Renaissance and the Reformation,
Hmm.
especially the Reformation. So there were people who wanted to get out of that chaos. It's like now we go like, well, where can we go? And people talk about, well, would I go to Costa Rica, or should I go to Ireland, or could I go here, or could I go there? It's like, where can we go to escape the chaos on planet Earth? And of course, it's hard to talk about what's going on with just one planet, because Pluto moving from Capricorn to Aquarius, you still, that affected the US chart. Then Neptune affects, the return of Neptune affected the US chart in terms of especially the issue of slavery that resulted in the Civil War. So no
Mhm.
matter how somebody wants to spin that, oh, it wasn't about slavery, it was, what did they say, it was about whatever economy or something. It's like, no,
Sure.
no, it wasn't. And it wasn't. So
Right.
both of those things, plus then Uranus and Gemini is about technology, and it was there end of the 1900s. It was there again when I was born. So
Hmm.
the technology, you know, factor, it's like all three of those things are interrelated. It's kind of hard to just say it's one thing, but
Right.
that it's real. I think what you said, that you have a German ancestor who came in the 1600s. It's like, yeah, let's don't forget it wasn't just people in Britain. It's people probably all over Europe trying to get away, like the Jews who said, I'm a Christian, and came from Spain
Right.
in the 1400s and
Sure.
settled New Mexico, you know,
Right.
and found
Out
out
of Moorish
200 years
Spain.
later, 300, 400 years later, that they're actually Jewish ancestry.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Ashken. So many. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. This is an interesting venue and thread to weave in here, because it brings up something interesting that I think is important. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto come into the consciousness, but that is not to suggest that there were not people who were holding some close knit flame within their soul that they were
Absolutely.
awakening.
Right.
I
Absolutely.
cannot help but suspect someone like Da Vinci, or Michelangelo or Voltaire may have had some awakening within themselves, that they were tapping into what a small percentage of humanity might experience.
Right.
But, you know, it's when we get these things discovered and they come into the consciousness that a larger number gets to that space where now it's validated. Now it's held by more of a
True.
recognizable crowd around me. So there's where shift changes and we see things happening. uh, Big arguments through the church certainly probably would be something to look at if we found dates and times for different councils and synods to see what was going on there. I'm a big advocate to suspect that there's a problem with the Catholic Church from the time they got in bed with Rome.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that's where manipulation and control was starting to take hold, and it's curious. So yeah, awakening uh, certainly came alongside of the Industrial Revolution.
Hmm.
Neptune was then discovered in 1846, within days in the same week of the first dental surgery with ether.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's and it also coincided with the opium wars that were going on in the south of China, and opium ended up coming into the Western culture and having its issues. So there's a lot of unconscious human drives that previously humankind did not consider. They were aware that they had a desire to love. They were aware that they had a drive to physically exert themselves, as we look at Mars. They could even be aware of a general spirit of Jupiter magnanimity and gracious openness to look out over all who can be a part of the divine. That would be our strongest spiritual positive planet. Um, the soul, the sun. Everybody recognized that it's nice to shine and experience art, and everybody had their reflective moods that could be connected to the moon, and we all could recognize some people who would sit and think a spell with the Mercury. So it was different to go ahead and bring in Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. That's a wild combination. For me, I have my Uranus and Pluto tight together with Venus, so I like them. And Saturn's right opposite, and we're really catalyzed nicely. And I think it's part of what makes me love awakened conversations that transform.
Can I ask a question? What you think
Sure.
of what you both think about the materialism and the capitalist, and what do you see that under? Because it's just gone, you know, off the Richter scale. And I mean, it's a bit like I was saying before, but then there's this beautiful layer underneath that of humans. Okay, there's struggle, but there's this beautiful layer of people, again, this sense that people are awakening more to their spirit, soul, heart. I know, yeah. So what do you think about where that lies?
I can throw some thoughts out there. This is the first time I'm approaching the question, and I love it. Uh, honestly, I think, okay, we're talking about that concept, and I'm thinking, first off, we just had a good bit of time talking about the nation of the US. And there seems to be a confusion of church and state and where everybody stands and how the nation was founded. And if we're going to talk about political science, because it feels like when you're talking about capitalism, it's being almost intertwined with our political system.
There's
And
something too, isn't there, about safety? The Do you think? I'm just keep getting the word safety in my head. There's a sense that
Yeah, because
that's really
Pluto and
underlying.
Capricorn. Yeah,
Is
we
it?
lost our safety. Pluto and
So sorry.
Capricorn. Pluto and Capricorn was when the safety began to erode around the system called capitalism. So
Okay.
it's like there's nothing wrong with capitalism as long as it
No.
supports everyone and it's a open, honest system for everyone, but it's not. It
but
turns
it's also not
out.
a political system. We were
Yeah.
No,
not founded as a capitalist nation.
no,
It was founded as a democratic republic.
right.
And there are so many Western cowboy things that our country has been known to do. And when I looked at things from the Capricorn ingress of Pluto and 2008, I found it referenced as the GFC, global financial collapse. And when you look around those who analyze it, you find multiple sources are looking that the US contributed mightily to the financial collapse of the entire planet,
Oh, totally.
including and not limited to any way, shape, or form the housing market that was created by nefarious, inappropriate financial dealings with the poor. And that is what sabotaged this nation. Do not blame the poor
Mm.
when it was money handed out unethically, hoping to squeeze the poor to get the money to go ahead and make good on those loans. How was that appropriate? And then I find out more as I look at the discovery of Pluto that in the 1930s, the Dust Bowl and our own Great Depression, we didn't cause the Dust Bowl. What we did do is have different political things coming up from previous administrations that set up the financial collapse from the roaring 20s and the ignoring of the masses, some Republican trouble, people that were trying to be extra conservative and they weren't taking care of people in the nation. They were ignoring farmers like mad. And if those farmers were not ignored, irrigation could have been different, preparation for preventing the famine and the bread lines could have been different. And that's just one area where there was failure prior to that trigger point of 1930. So,
Wow.
now we did have also a major earthquake in China in 2008 that caused, I think, $150 billion in damage that rippled through the Eastern markets that can combined and certainly did nothing good for the global economy. But in spite of that one thing, the US is looked at globally as being at the root of the global financial collapse.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound
Which
good.
closely happening now, isn't it? What do you think, Linda?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I was trying to remember what your original question was, Jane.
Yeah.
It was about capitalism.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
capitalism.
and
and
yeah, and materialism
and
Okay.
materialism.
So what I like about everything you say, Jane, it falls under what I call life as an essay. It's like you're looking more at the whole thing rather than like
yeah,
who's to blame here and who's to blame there. I mean, we have to have that too to sort things out. But I
yeah,
hear you saying like this is the total picture. We've got this collapse of things, and then we've got people who are really going like, wow, we really are all one, and there's enough for everybody. So my answer to you is that I feel like it's in our belief system so much that is going to be changing. Um, a man named Arnold Patton said back in the 80s and wrote a book called You Can Have It All. There's enough for everyone. There's enough for everyone on the planet.
there
It's
really
just the
is.
way it's being distributed and the belief system that we have that there have to be like people who have a lot, people who don't have anything, and all this stuff. That has to go, and that's starting to shift as we see these people with billions and billions of dollars. For what reason do they have that? And it's like it doesn't make any sense, and the distribution is out of whack. So the essay continues as we move
Mm-hmm.
more towards some kind of more equal distribution of what we're doing. And
An
that's and
Aquarian
Aquarius can bring that, but
influence. Yes.
Aquarius has a shadow like everything else. It's got the what's that word when anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's being promoted right now. It's
Yeah.
kind of anarchy kind of thing, and blame whoever you can.
Storm the Bastille.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay, get out of here, please. I can't hear myself think. Anyway, that's what I would say. It's like it's changing. It can be a fast change. I don't know if it's going to be fast or slow, but there's some kind of belief system change that goes with awakening. It's not
I
just
think
that.
there will be a lot of surprises of things that, as they say, nobody had that on their bingo card.
Right. Yeah. We don't seem to be able to envision different beliefs. That's our problem. I mean, we're just kind of like right in the liminal movement towards that, I think. It's like it's real hard. How do we reframe this to something else?
Well, we're
Yeah,
only
it's
just
interesting.
beginning to see that we're missing something. And you
Yeah.
don't know what it is that it's missing until you do more of this, have these discussions, raise awareness, talk about pieces that might fit into the puzzle and help us find where the shapes connect.
Yeah.
Only then, as we engage the Aquarian intellect to share in the larger group think, will we begin to see things have the capacity to be understood. But
There's a
we have to
sense too.
generate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
we have to generate
Oh,
it.
yeah. I come from a very um what do you call it? Fundamental Christian background. And I really don't have anything to do with it anymore. But I appreciate what I learnt in it,
Mhm.
you know, what I thought I learnt. And then of course, your churches are run by humans. And what do you do with humans? They're human and we're all broken, and it's like,
Messy.
and it's messy. And I suppose I love that. And I think again, I'm not an island, that there's this sense that, okay, bottom line, if you really do want to think about where say Christianity came from, and it was Jesus at the center, but if you really look at what was being said, and that was all about love,
Mhm.
and if you really do think about that, then, and most religions are supposedly that's their center.
There's a golden
Um,
rule in many different places and formats
but it's
from
just, I suppose, if it's that sense of, if we could just keep reminding ourselves that, okay, there's all these humans that have come up with all these different rules in different religions and all this sort of stuff, and but really, bottom line, we're all connecting in, I hope, to do with, it's based on love. And there's, if it's, I suppose, with Linda saying, you know, we've got all these different religions, and why can't we see that we're, you know, come together and say, hey, but no, I can't see how you think. Oh, no, I can't see how you think. I think this, and I'm the right one. And it's like, oh, I'd love that to just break apart.
I'm a
Anyway,
huge fan of the astrological approach to look at an individual's ninth house to see where you're going to come up with your idea of religion for you. How do
okay.
you relate to your ideas of a structure so that you can look at your own spirituality? And then the 12th house is like how you take a mystical approach. So I think if we
Yeah,
go
that's good.
ahead and shift, that wouldn't be a good thing.
That's great. Look, Linda's done a big move.
Um, I had to
Yeah,
move because he wasn't going to move. He has to get some
It-
stuff ready for tomorrow, so I decided to move. I just want to say I've been asking, does anybody have any personal experience with the shift from
I'm gonna.
Capricorn to Aquarius?
I'll share something intriguing. Several years ago, I believe it was under the last throes of Pluto and Capricorn, I began something that I refer to as the community of colleagues. And it was a collaborative think tank of different minds coming together. And we were trying to tackle different things and figure out how we would support one another in our own businesses and such. And I didn't, it wasn't until we were in full swing that Pluto was in Aquarius that I realized I'd created a think tank.
Cool.
And then I realized that I had been pulling people together for conversations that, even though some of it has been inspired by Astrology Unplugged, it was other conversations I'd been having elsewhere. Like, how can a bunch of people get together and discuss things like gender expression and the divine, or healthy versus wounded masculinity, things of that sort. How can men get together and communicate about emotional literacy? And I realized only after Pluto ended up in Aquarius that they were think tanks
Mhm.
of people from different backgrounds coming together to bring these thoughts down to a space where we can utilize the wisdom they have to offer and reach a helping mind and share some words that can
That's
help one
perfect.
another.
Yeah.
So that's one way that
Yeah.
I see Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn, and then Pluto and Aquarius.
I love that. That really affirms what a lot of people say, that the change will happen from the ground up
Mm-hmm.
through people. It's not going to be from like the top down, even though they think it is. It's really not, for what you just said, because there's little groups like this everywhere,
Right.
changing the thinking, changing the behavior. So I think that really is great. I would say for myself, my cat finds me wherever I am. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Shanti, back off. Anyway, it would have been great, since I'm 81. It would have been great if they could have held off with the revolution. I would have been okay staying in the same system for another 10 years, because I don't particularly want to have to change or fight or run, or, any of those things that seem to be on the agenda. However, it's taken some months, but I'm starting to realize, probably somewhat through talking to people like you, that things that I was doing, that I have what I'd say mastery of since, say, the 90s, that some of that is still valid, but it has to be repackaged, because it's Aquarius is different. Pluto in Aquarius, and Neptune in Aries, and Uranus and Gemini, they're all mandating that we have to do it differently. Just like
We have to level up.
yeah, just like you explained, it's like there's a different energy. It can't be from the
Mm-hmm.
same kind of frequency it was. The frequency was okay for what it was then.
Mm-hmm.
Frequency is different now. And that's starting to really uh, settle in. It's starting to really inform me, as they would say.
Sure.
I'm not ready to learn AI yet, but I am. But I have had some really weird experiences of like just the like 12 o'clock at night getting a new domain name and going,
Mm-hmm.
well, that's weird. Well, we'll see where that goes. And it's like that's part of the different frequency of packaging everything under a new frequency. So that's what I would
That,
have to say with it on the individual level, for me.
that's great. That really resonates with me because I feel
Oh,
like, yeah, I just feel like, well, yeah, the change in me is that I feel like I'm more connected into listening to guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny saying listening because it's not really listening, but you're aware, your
yeah, it is.
awareness.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah.
had something happen that was scary the other night that I heard at 1 o'clock in the morning, something, a big noise on my roof. And I thought straight away it was my big aerial because it sounded like
Mm-hmm.
the twanging of a piece of wire. But I
Right.
thought, I don't know if I'm right. I don't know. I was just scared at first. And then I just sort of settled myself down and I said, okay, what I kept hearing a knocking sound on the roof as well. And I live by myself, so it's like, yeah. And and is it a roof tile? Is it whatever? Anyway, so I settled down and I just said, okay, what do I need to know about this? And I literally just got the word trust. And the knocking stopped and I was able to go to sleep again. And it
Wow.
was so it's those it's just an example
That's
of just
beautiful. Yes,
beautiful
totally.
things that can happen. And those synchronistic things where I find myself saying thank you so often during the day because just so many, there might be tough things that happen, but somehow or other, anyway, it's just those things where I feel like just for me, but I feel like hopefully more people are just more aware of, yeah, connecting in to yourself and listening to your higher power. So
Mhm.
yeah,
That's wonderful. I love that. That's really
You
great.
mentioned earlier your fundamentalist background, and we're looking at how things are changing, and we're thinking about what we've learned and what we'd like to hold on to. And I remember in the words of Jesus, where there's talking of, for those who have ears to hear, listen, that
mm.
there was a difference between hearing and listening. And I think, Jane, that's kind of what you were approximating. You
Yeah.
heard the sound on the roof,
Mm.
you were listening to the voice within.
Mm. Of how to handle that situation. Where
Even
in the
though it was not
past,
an audible voice, you're
Right.
not
yes, that's
hearing,
right.
you don't need medicated for that voice. Yeah,
No,
that is just awareness, as you say.
Beautiful.
it is because it's
Yeah.
not a voice.
Right,
It's
right.
just that you to describe it, it's like it is, isn't it, Linda? You just sort of like
Oh yeah, for
something
sure.
comes into you and you
Right.
go, okay,
Yeah.
lovely.
But that, I have to appreciate that for some people, who are the pawns in the game here, this is a terrifying time.
Must
And
be.
the more scared we are, the harder it is to like
Sure.
be quiet and listen or hear or get the trust or whatever.
Mm.
So all those things are true, but I
It's easier to be a congressman than a foot soldier.
absolutely, or an immigrant. So
Right,
Yeah.
I'm grateful every day. I just think, wow, I'm really grateful where I live. I'm grateful I'm not in that particular demographic that's going to be not be able to sleep at night because what's going to happen, you know?
right. Yeah,
They're the
because our
worst.
marginalized people
Right.
are so much at risk.
Yeah, they are. They're really at risk.
Yeah.
So no matter
So,
how altruistic we talk about awakening and everything, we have to also keep the realities in mind that we're as a group we're not there yet. We've still got
mhm.
we literally
Mm.
have people who believe that races are different species.
Mm.
But
Right,
think like when Darwin said survival of the species, it meant whether what based on what color you are rather than we're all human species. We're all Homo sapiens here.
I saw an Italian content creator referencing the early 20th century and possibly late 19th century, where they were disparaging with political cartoons and the Italians, and they were marginalizing them with their words, referring to them as Homo Italicus, as though they were a completely separate species,
Right, exactly.
and creating a caricature,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it was quite ghastly, but
Right.
you can see it all over.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked a brief bit about evolutionary astrology, and I was hoping that I might go ahead and say a little something about that from something I shared with you earlier today that kind of led us into Jung and synchronicity, which gives us a nice um, intermingling that'll help us bring some thoughts together around Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, um, specifically anchoring in with Pluto. The elements that I have looked at from the time Uranus was discovered and the awakening, and then we had the Industrial Revolution that was followed by more opportunities of some controlled light with gas lighting that would have been more common, as well as uh, the idea of all that was going on with people and politics, making people have existential questions after Neptune had gotten into the picture. And I see that there was, and from Neptune's discovery, as I mentioned, there was the ether and dental surgery, the opium, and that opium triggered some thoughts regarding tripping on drugs. And that was then raised up again in the 60s with Jefferson Airplane with the song White Rabbit. Anybody who looks that up, you can find a nice little flavor of the 60s, get an idea for
Was
how
that-
people were thinking about the music. And it dawns on me as I'm thinking about it, because for my recognition of the Lionsgate this year, I decided to get it to crystal for myself. And it was this little tiny, like just a little over an inch at best, sculpture of an upright seated rabbit in pyrite. And I kept thinking about this little rabbit, and White Rabbit was going down the rabbit hole is where it went. And I kept wondering, why am I thinking about chasing the dragon? Well, in India, they reference the north and the south node as the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. And at the same time that the opium was being brought into the Western European culture, you had opium dens where engaging in that type of a trip was chasing the dragon. And I was thinking, there they are contemplating existential questions. And I started thinking about how Lewis Carroll and all the imagery of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass were equated with tripping. But the man was a mathematics professor at Oxford and a minister who was the son of a minister. I am absolutely positive he was going into an unconscious space trying to help people understand symbology and metaphor and taking people through what I see as a shamanic journey. It's really about how we navigate the underworld of our own unconscious through dream and other spaces, visions, reverie, our appreciation for art, our ability to look at an oracle card and understand, I've seen this before, but I don't remember ever being struck by this little part of the picture, you know? So these things are partly why I've taken a list of 20 asteroids from Lewis Carroll, and I'll probably be doing a lecture at an art gallery where I'll be talking about dreams and visions and symbols and arts and reading oracles, and also how you can possibly understand what about those different drives, like Alice is about curiosity. The rabbit hole, a white rabbit is about the rabbit hole. The white knight is that courageous, chivalrous urge to go in and save the day, you know, which is oftentimes played by the damsel in distress, played upon, and it has its own strange dynamic, maybe some sort of a Dulcinea Don Quixote thing. It'll be interesting to flesh that out further. And so we were talking, and we were trying to flesh out elements of the shamanic elements of this, and looking at the hangman, and it made me think of Odin hanging on the world tree and how he saw the runes, that suddenly he had the answers for the world. And essentially, it is going within shamanically and taking what is nudging you and gnawing at you. Why do I keep thinking about this subject in my life, this thing? I don't understand what I'm supposed to know about it. And you just continue with it. And suddenly you realize, with this, could have had a V8 moment. You understand why. I understand why I was thinking about chasing the dragon. It's all about recognizing the shamanic urge within. And maybe this is why I've had such a fascination with Caraclow. And before he died, Rick recognized he was getting all these people coming who were looking for readings at the age of 62. That's when Caraclow has its return. That's the shamanic healer, not the wounded healer, the shamanic healer.
Right.
and interesting that the feminine of Chiron, Caraclo, is the one that has it together and can function to bring healing without moving through wounding, as Chiron does. So then we're starting to think about it, and I'm thinking about the shamanic world tree. We approach the world tree, we're aware of the upper world, that Uranian symbolism, the sky. We see the tree and the leaves are like the middle world, and that would be where the water is, because we would actually frequently, where you have the root branches at the bottom of the tree, we would perhaps see a puddle there. And through the water, which is Neptunian,
Oh, yeah.
we take this journey
Mhm.
into the underworld through the root system to get into the underworld, which is going from Uranus to Neptune to Pluto, which is what we're seeing at this time that is so unique with Aquarius, Aries, and then Gemini, of having Pluto, Saturn to help kick off Neptune, and Uranus with Sedna. And that has not been, since we do the math and go back before, recorded time. And when we don't have ephemerises that go back far enough to show that type of a thing ever happening in this record of time. We would have to continue doing math, and we have other things to do. Let's just figure out where we are now. You know? So, how do we go ahead and take this Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto and bring it into ourselves? Is essentially a type of shamanic astrology when you think of it. So, this made us talk a good bit about Jung earlier, as he had some insights about synchronicity, because I do think there's absolutely a connection with synchronicity and shamanic journeying, because you see things along the journey that mean something. I don't know why I need that rabbit. I don't know why I want to pay attention to the rabbit. It's the rabbit hole. It's the journey. It so I'm going to let that be my intro to have you tell us a little bit about Carl Jung and his thoughts on synchronicity and his contributions, however you may wish to share them. If you wanted to share anything from the Jung group,
Yeah.
or
Well,
wherever
it's
you're at.
basically astrology is just a repetition of that old saying, as above, so below.
Hmm.
And synchronicity is kind of like that too. And I think that we go through periods of times where we're very ingrained, or we're just in sync with synchronicity because of
Hmm.
some other kind of cycle that we're going through. And then we may go for years and not be as much into that, even though it may be happening. It may not really hit our radar. That's possible. But yeah, Carl Jung. I don't know where I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, because I didn't get organized on that one. But I would say that one thing I got a quote recently, and I ran it by a friend who is a Jungian diplomat, and he really did say things like the biggest sin is to be unconscious. So he was really trying to help people be more conscious, and he did that through this idea of the synchronicity, that things don't happen by accident, like the dreams. That Jungian therapy is all about dreams, of trying to like get the message of what something represented in a dream that is trying to teach, inform, or heal in any way. And then, of course, his archetypal work, his interest in archetypes and understanding, the feminine. But then we have like the animus complex. The complex is where somebody is unconscious. and so people have mother complexes. We're unconscious of how we've been affected by the mother and how we're reacting all the time from some mother problem or something like that. So that's just an example of the archetype. And by the way, Carolyn May said uh, in some talk she gave, it's been a while ago and I don't know what talk it was. She just, one sentence, she said, the archetypal realm is the fifth dimension. And I really believe that. It's like, I feel like we come into this world and we stop at the archetypal store and we pick up our archetypes and we come on here. And these archetypes are just these energies that we're dealing with, whether we're going to be um, male, female, helper, sociopath. I'm
Black
not,
sheep.
what?
Black sheep.
Black sheep, the black sheep. We're going to stay a child. We're going to be a child. We're going to be a queen. Are we going to be a mythic queen or are we going to be a selfish queen? Like just all these kind of different things. Or are we going to come in as a selfish queen and become a mythic queen? Are we going to be a hero? Are we going to, what's our knapsack consist of? And that's all the Jungian stuff of like, who are we? And now moving in with this Aquarius energy and Neptune moving and everything else, in addition to all that, we have to know when to put the knapsack down and go, no ego, no identity, because that's how we connect with something that's bigger. That's how we connect with the field, if you want to be quantum about it. So we have to learn how to do that too. We have to like say, I'm none of that. I don't even have a name. Because when we leave here, no name, no identity, we're not going to like be smiling our, well, I don't think we are. I don't know. I can't say what's going to happen. But one possibility is that no name, no ego, no persona, we are going to connect with a higher energy that is a light and love. So that's like
Yeah,
Young.
that
I think Young has been a part of our getting to that place.
that description makes me feel very connected to the Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries,
Mhm.
where we are going to need to step into our mystical imagery of ourself
Yes.
and let go of our preconceived notions and connect with our inner monastic expression of our identity as being something a little different than we've tried to keep it in a
Yes.
box. Because boxes have a forced shape.
Yeah.
We must be more boundless, and it seems strange to consider how will Saturn help me create a boundless box.
Be a shapeshifter.
It's a
Right.
containment shift
Yeah.
going into the quantum field.
Right.
It's a dimensional vibrational shift that we're going to be going through.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that this is, I mean, things like this, things like looking at the 2019 eclipses where three were in Capricorn, what was the universe trying to get the entire planet ready for? Could it be it was trying to get us straightening our structures out and our institutions so we could prepare for the pandemic of 2020 globally? All of these things have been in a progression. And because of that, I've come to see evolutionary astrology as not just being individual, but also corporate.
Right.
There
Yeah.
is a place to look at it as having reference to the collective.
Right.
And yeah, this has been such a pleasure to have all this connection to put some of this stuff because I I I had 50 web pages that I closed down from the research that I had been doing on Pluto because I was all over the place. I found amazing things that are going to continue to fuel my writing and my work as I look into Pluto. And I look forward to sharing some of that in the future if it ever comes to be a space where it's helpful. Um, I look at births and deaths because when you look at a death at the time of a discovery, the life's work is highlighted at that time. So it gets a resurgence and brings it into the consciousness. When it's a birth, you have to wait for them to go through their life and see what becomes of that. So it's only in the retrospective that you find out how the births were so amazing. And I ran across some filmmakers. I ran across some deeper understanding, even though I was focused in Spanish history and such, that I came to understand the nuanced differences of Spanish fascism with Francisco Franco. Uh, there was just so much that was amazing to experience with the pursuit of looking into Pluto. So I highly advise it. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you all. I think we have really done some amazing stuff. And in light of Jung's thoughts, may we all be conscious.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, I'm
How's
awake.
that? Yeah,
Thank you all for being here.
Oh, thank
absolutely.
you.
Thank
Thank
us
you,
all
thank
for
you.
coming.
And hopefully see you next time, Britt. And I hope you're well, Claudia. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you. Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
If
Good
anybody
night.
wants to stay on, I'm going to feel free.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go, but
Bye-bye, Jane.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
darlings. Bye, Jane.
Bye.